Welcome to the episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Today we have something a little bit different. This is a Christie fire truck, and it's a fascinating vehicle. I don't know if you're familiar with Walter Christie. He was one of those great unsung engineers of the early 1900s. He was born in 1865 in New Jersey, lived till 1944, and like a lot of these great engineers, died pretty much penniless. He built a number of race cars, revolutionary race cars, the first guy to do front-wheel drive effectively. None of his cars remain, sadly, but many of his fire engines do. When they were getting rid of the horses, you would just buy, essentially, this part forward and then hook it up to you'd normally hook the horses and carry your boiler to where the fire was. But let's bring in Andy Swift. Andy, come on in here. Andy owns Firefly Restoration up in Hope, Maine. His brother George works here at the garage with us. And this belongs to the Burbank Fire Department. And they brought it over to my shop and said, Jay, could you get this running? There's no money or anything in it. We'd just like you to get it running. Well, sure, okay. So that's what we did.
You might get a T-shirt.
No, we'll get a T-shirt out of it. But it's a great piece of history. Andy, tell us a little bit more here.
Well, we didn't do the restoration to begin with, but this was done in the 90s, I believe. Originally an LA City piece, like you said, horse-drawn to begin with.
Right.
Warner Brothers acquired it, as they did your fire engine. And they also had a Moreland. So they gave the stuff for $1 or something to Burbank.
It's not a 100% authentic restoration because most fire departments don't have the money for that type of thing. And like a lot of vehicles, it just sits on display, and they wanted to get it running, so they brought it here to us. Christie was a fascinating character. We have a couple of race cars up on the wall, like that one there. That's the V4 front-wheel drive. That's the first car to lap Indianapolis at over 100 miles an hour average speed. So they were fast. And the thing that did Walter Christie in was there was no CV joints yet for front-wheel drive. So consequently, the drive shafts would wear out or break. And of course, tires couldn't take the power either. So front-wheel drive was just not economically feasible back in the day. But this was the most successful vehicle he ever built. He built a number of race cars. He was the first American to race in the French Grand Prix, 1907, I believe. So he had a lot of firsts. He raced against Barney Oldfield. And something that people might not know, this sort of pillar sliding suspension, that was his as well. And he raced in the Vanderbilt Cup race, I believe in 1906, against Vincenzo Lancia. And he crashed into Lancia. And Lancia was furious and then looked at his suspension and then copied it for the Lamba. So that's some interesting, useless facts. But tell us about this motor.
Well, it's a T-head, casted pairs, 4-cylinder.
Now what a T-head means is
perfect, shot of a T-head.
It's just like a T right here, okay? Your piston is in the middle, and it's a twin cam. There you go. Twin cams on both sides.
And it's also transverse. So we got front-wheel drive, transverse, rack and pinion steering.
Right. You know, it wasn't until the late 50s, Alex Izagonas, I think his name is, the Mini. The Mini is almost an exact copy, drive-wise, of this. I mean, Walter Christie he couldn't sell people on the idea, and it took 50 years to catch on. Now all cars, or most cars, are essentially front-wheel drive transverse, just like this. How big an engine is it?
Didn't we figure 600? Where's George?
661 cubic inches and about, 10.9 liters, something like that. So it's a massive engine. You know, the technology gets lost. You get a lot of firemen, old firemen retire, new firemen come in. They're busy, obviously, fighting fires and working on the modern stuff. So the knowledge of how to operate these and how to fix them just gets lost. And guys like Andy, who haven't progressed since the 40s, really, basically, live in the past. See, they hold this knowledge. So he's not moving forward. He is stuck in the past, and we are thankful for that because he knows how to fix these stupid things. Now, the problem was, this is your clutch right here. Oh, and it has an electric starter.
That is. I think the body of this, they had snapped this off, and they made some sort of modification.
Now, do you think this was original with the teeth on it?
Yes.
It was.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Why would it have had teeth? And probably for an electric start.
I mean,
huh?
yeah.
So it must have had some sort of electric
Yeah,
start.
and your clutch is behind it,
Yeah,
and
this-
there's 4 discs.
Yeah.
No material on the discs.
Right. Just
Never
metal
had-
disc. Boom, like that. And you had to put what, new springs in it?
New springs. George refaced it.
Yeah.
Bernard made us a wrench to get this off. It was a pure pleasure to be at the Big Dog Garage and running into problems and having these guys come to our rescue.
Well, that's sort of another problem with machinery like this is there were special tools to work on them. Those tools get lost. Somebody looks at this and, oh, well, we can't get that off. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And it just sits and sits and sits. So it's got a magneto, obviously. You got your original run flat tires right here. That's solid rubber on there.
And so, Jay, you got a big ring gear in underneath this, and then your bull gear is in. This is an end cover for the bearing,
Right.
but you got a big ring gear, and underneath this is all ball bearings.
Yeah.
There's a ball bearing race this big, and ball bearings.
Oh, yeah.
All around it.
And they look like cue balls, don't they?
Yeah, they're huge.
Those are big ball bearings.
And as the big end in this engine has ball bearing races like this big, you
Yeah,
know, so
yeah.
really bomb-proof
Right.
engine.
Now, these are all chrome, which of course would not have been available back in the day. It
No.
would have been nickel.
Yeah.
Chrome didn't come in until 28, 29. But you know, back years ago when people restored these things in the 50s and 60s, they just wanted them to look shiny and new, and they weren't as such sticklers for authenticity as we are today. So they would, because they're only 40 years old then, it wasn't that big a deal, you
Yeah.
know. So they would chrome it because it looks nice, and it looks nice, but normally this should be nickel. Let's move a little bit further back here. See, the idea behind this was, here's your radiator right here. And the idea was that in big cities in the 1910s, still used horse-drawn apparatus here. So consequently, switching over from horses to cars, rather than buy the whole vehicle, well, you just get rid of the horses and you hook this up where the horses would have been and you drag this whole deal with you.
And you can see by this frame here with this crane neck, this is where the front wheels would be able to pass underneath
Right.
and make a very steep turn. So then you can see how they just bolted the main frame of the Christie right in between. Horses have been in the fire department for like 75 years.
Yeah.
And that was really a hard transition for a
Right.
lot of firemen.
Sure.
You were really taking a lot of romance
Right.
out of the fire service when the horses left.
And don't forget, most of the roads were cobblestone, so 25 miles an hour in this is like 80 miles an hour in a normal car. I mean, that was with solid rubber tires, hardly any suspension.
Well, I was driving it yesterday, and it's
Yeah.
a scare ride on these.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. All right, let's see. Let's move further back here. Let's go into the boiler unit here.
This really had good response times in the fire service.
Yeah.
You know, basically goes as fast as horses, and they're in and out of the firehouse. This thing from cold water, American LaFrance would say you can have working pressure in 3 minutes.
Right.
And in order to do that, you're really forcing that boiler, but it would take it. Most of the time, these boilers were backed up to a system that heated the firehouse
Right.
as well as heated the boiler, so you didn't have this molecular freak out of
Right.
the interior wall of the boiler moving, because it's going to move real fast
Right.
and stuff like that. That's why all this lagging. Look at all the lagging
Yeah.
that's in there. That's to keep everything stable.
And this boiler was recently certified, so it's ready to go. How do you heat your boiler? Well, right here. It's your fire grate. As you can see, it's a grate. So you're actually dropping hot coals and sparks, which would normally be followed by a chemical engine, right?
Right.
Which would-
In some cities, that was protocol. You run one of these, you run a chemical engine out, because as you're going down the road and this thing's banging and stuff, it's shooting live embers right out of the top,
right.
and they're landing on all the awnings of all the stores. So you're fighting fire with fire, and
right.
then
And you're making as many fires as you're putting out.
this guy did a lot of things on his way to the fire, and it's kind of spooky back here. Just ask George and Tom, because it's even on these roads. You know,
Yeah.
you got to hang on,
Yeah.
and that's what this is for.
Right.
So,
So you're-
you've got two safeties here.
So you guys would hang on here while sparks are flying.
Yeah, you know, and then your whistle here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got your whistle right there. Very cool.
Yeah, and then this is your level of your water that you want to maintain.
Right.
Is it here? So this is what they call a surface blow.
Right. You get to the fire, then what happens?
So this guy's going to jump off. He's going to jump off. He's going to engineer this.
Right.
They're going to see what they need.
Right.
They're going to work very close. He says, hey, look, I need 5 more pounds. This guy can trim that fire.
Okay.
He can do what he wants, and you can really, you know, good
And
engineering.
your water that
fireman.
you're shooting on the fire comes from where?
That needs to come from a cistern, a hydrant, a
Right.
pond,
Right.
another water source. The only hose on this thing is for,
So the pressure to this is what? Pulling it out of the hydrant? What is it? How does it work?
this is going to suck anything. I mean,
Right.
this will pull a lift of, 30 feet.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so if you put it down in it'll evacuate all that air
So
and
it'll
create
you
suction.
can stick it in a lake or anything of that nature.
Whatever you
You're fine.
want. But this would have
Right.
been, because it's a city piece, most definitely would have probably gone to a hydrant or a cistern.
Right. Right.
You could almost write a book on cisterns in cities. They're amazing
Yeah.
brickwork, and that whole structure of cisterns is amazing.
It's probably time to take it for a ride. Engage this here. Come on, the fire! The building is burning! Will you hurry up? There's a fire! Look, the flames are coming. The flames are coming through the roof.
Disability coming up. Come on.
That's all right. It's pretty much burned to
All
the
right,
ground.
yeah, all right.
This is your clutch.
Okay, guy.
No.
That's Andy. Keep going.
Okay?
Yep. Keep
All
it
clear.
We'll make it. You got it.
And I want to thank Andy Swift at Firefly Restoration up in Hope, Maine. There you go, right there. You can go to his here's his website here if you'd like to learn more about fire engines. But I just thought it'd be kind of cool to show you something a little bit different. We'll see you next week.
Mm-hmm.